What is up, and welcome to Loose Beats, where our motto is chill out and make a beat, because life isn't that serious. That's what I tell myself, at least. I'm Toby, aka Cushing from the T&D channel. Make sure you check out everything we do. And today we're going to be talking about Arcade. So I have been using them for years. They are not a sponsor, so I'm going to speak freely. And I have a few complaints about it. There is a reason why I keep them around, and I will mention that too. But there's a couple things that I've always had a little issue with. And if so, we hop over here. As a basic rundown, Arcade is a plugin to where you can have VSTs, actual instruments that you can play like a keyboard. And then there are sample instruments that you can play. And every white key has a different sample in it, for instance. And then every black key is going to be some modifiers, some different delays. You know, it can chop your sample up. It can play it in different sections and kind of glitch it out, stretch it out. There's a lot of different things that it can run through. And so the idea is great, and, you know, they really do win at that. And then the other thing would be a more VST approach instrument like this, which is a synth pad, in which you play it like you would a keyboard. You can play chords, and it's just another VST. So it comes with a lot. It comes with a lot of options, and that is very helpful. But you can already hear my first complaint, which is that it requires so much processing power. And not only are you having to be connected to the internet and it's running off of that to download and get new packs and things like that, you're also having to pretty much overclock your processor. And a older computer, if it's not brand new, it's not gonna sound clean, and it's gonna have a lot of clipping and distortion and while you're playing. Now there is a workaround that I use, which I'll just play something here. So you can hear the popping, the clipping in there, and it's just my processor not being able to handle it. And this is a pretty beefy computer, you know, it really should be able to play live like that. So it gives you MIDI notes, you know, just like it would in any VST. And so you can quantize them, things like that. Another problem, when you quantize them, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be on point every time, because a lot of times the samples themselves are a little delayed or lagged. Like, say you have a synth like this, you know, to where its attack is really long, or you have a flute or something like that, and it has a natural delay in it, it's going to kind of get offset throughout your track, you know, so it's kind of hard to exactly know what it's going to come out like. So say we do this, and then we bounce this down. And sometimes this will fix the problem. Let's see if it does. Yeah, see, it did not that time. And I don't have a tried and true way to get around that. It doesn't seem like, you know, if my computer's a little clogged up and, you know, it needs to be cleaned, sometimes that'll help. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes it really just can't run it. And again, this is a pretty strong computer, pretty powerful. And so that's one problem. And then we've got, let's even show it on the vocal one. So we go back, and on this vocoder sample keyboard here, let's try it with the modifiers and things like that going too. Very similar kind of thing. Okay, so you heard the pops. I'm really just trying to show you that when it has to reprocess and play a different arrangement of chords, especially when there's the modifiers on, it just doesn't seem to click fast enough in, and it gives you that clipping sound. So let's try this one bounce down and see if it handles it for us or not. Now, see, that time it did, which I literally did the same vocoder thing. It wasn't just that Aura pack. I did the same thing just a moment ago with this vocoder pack, and it was clipping every time. Just like when you heard a second ago, even through the bounce, it was clipping every time I was changing. And so I don't really know. It's it's hard to say when it's going to do that, and a lot of times it'll take a couple tries, and that's really frustrating. I mean, everyone can't afford the newest computer and operating system and stuff, and every time they upgrade, it seems to get further away from it working on whatever you're working on. And but sometimes it works, and that's frustrating too because it's hard to replicate. Sometimes you'll do that a few times and it will never give you one, and sometimes it won't bother you at all, and it'll be fine the entire time you're using it. So that's one of the first problems I've found with it. There is a lot of in-depth things you can do with each sample, which I do like. You can go in and fuck with your speeds and tuning, which is, your two main things you're going to use it for. You can change your modifiers to trigger at different points and velocities and, all over the place. So there is a lot you can do in it. I just don't think that it's really caught up to being able to work on these old computers. You could say that it's my fault for not having a machine that can run it. You could blame the user, but that isn't typically the approach. It should still work pretty fluently on, a decent computer. But another thing, so since I've been using a lot of these AI programs and stuff like that, I've found that having the MIDI come out, which I still haven't found a great one. I'm still working on those videos. I still haven't found one that really has a natural feel to it. But these, on the other hand, some of them are recordings of instruments. A lot of them are just samples and VST-based samples, right? So even they used a digital instrument to create the sample you're playing, is what I'm saying. And so in those cases, it'd be nice to have the MIDI output, so then I could not only play a sample, but I could switch up the instruments or sounds. It would be cool if I could actually go in. So say like I click on a drum beat or percussion and I just want to change one little thing, say I just want to change a hi-hat or a snare or something like that and not the entire sound. So like there's plenty of drum beat samples and stuff you can use. But if I could get this MIDI output from it as well as the sample recorded in whatever instrument they want to use, then I think that would be helpful as well, because then you could go in and just change subtleties, because once you get that drum beat, there is no changing anything in that. And these are free to use and copyright free, so it's like there are a lot of people that are going to be using these, and they're going to run out of things to use eventually, and you're going to overlap and use the exact same samples with the exact same tonalities and instrument sounds. And sometimes you just need to change subtle little things. Sometimes it's off a little bit. Sometimes that swing in it doesn't really match what you need, but the drum kit and everything around it sounds so good. It'd be nice to be able to snap the MIDI in instead of having to bounce it down and then flex tune it, which is another workaround. Just like we bounced this down before, you can go in and then, if it's lagging or anything, you can throw on an extra little flex tune to snap it into place if you wanted to, right? So already you can see that wasn't hitting at the right time, even though I had quantized it in its MIDI form. So what I'm saying is that it'd be nice to have the sample-based and the MIDI output in there so we could switch up the instruments. I think that would be cool. And another one I think is that even if they couldn't give you a full MIDI outline of what it's doing, a lot of times I find myself not knowing the exact notes or chords that a sample uses. So I like to use this as inspiration, and I don't really like to use the exact samples as everyone else that has this program, right? So I like to record them and then go back with a VST from them or from someone else, whatever you want to use, a different MIDI instrument or real instrument, and then recreate them, right? And so I'd love if there was not only your key, if there was actual chord structures of each sample that you could look its in its metadata somewhere. I don't know where it would be, but if there was a function to where you could look inside of a sample and then see not only its key, but any chords that were used in the entire sample or any note steps that were used. For example, I'll just hear like a guitar line or a keyboard line like this, which is pretty sick. I do like that line a lot. But a lot of times I'll find that as inspiration, and then I really just want to know the exact chords. That's not that hard, and you can pick it out easily, but it'd be nice if it was just kind of laid out in front of you. You know, a tab for guitar or a piano roll, some MIDI notes, or just a chord list. Anything like that would help. That would make it a lot easier for me to recreate them, you know? So even if they couldn't put out the MIDI, I would still want to know a little more details about how it's played. A lot of times it'll be like a major seventh to a little sixth, and then it'll be a quick diminished, and I just can't quite pick it out because it's in some like washy pad or something like that. So it's really hard to pick out specific notes that are changing. And I'd love to have just a little bit of info on, it's just more work. I understand that I'm asking too much, but I just always thought that would be cool because I do find myself struggling a little bit sometimes, especially with pads, trying to recreate all those chords that are changing and just do it by ear, you know? So these are just a couple things that I found. I still use them all the time. I really just use them for inspo, but it's still something that's going to stay in my rotation. And overall, I still give them the thumbs up. I still say, yeah, it's $10 a month. And if you produce a lot and get stuck a lot, having a couple ideas thrown at you is really helpful, Like this is a collection of Latin subgenre ones. And just hear it for a second. You get a little something. And maybe you hear something inside of that and you're like, oh, I kind of like that guitar riff. You want to go find it. Yeah. And so if you didn't have anything going already, it's kind of nice to just give you somewhere to start. So for that reason, I am going to keep them around and say go ahead and use them if you produce often, right? But these are just a couple little gripes I had. And thank you guys for listening to my rants or whatever. I love y'all. Make sure to check out everything else we do on the channel. Make sure to check out our Patreon. We've got extra podcasts over there, extra music shows. Make sure to check that out whenever you can. Make sure to check out Cushing, which is my music that I put out on Spotify or wherever. Whenever you can, I'm putting out new shit all the time. Love you. And lastly, Real Bird. Check out our company. It's our merch. It's a cult, baby. Check that out when you can. We love you for that. We're going to go out. Peace.